I took the night shift at Walmart because I needed the money. What I didn't expect were the rules. Don't answer the intercom if it calls your name. Don't use the restroom near aisle 13. And whatever you do, never touch the merchandise arranged in circles. At first, I thought it was just superstition. Then I saw the shadows moving on their own. The job listing said flexible hours and decent pay. I needed both. Rent was due, and my last paycheck from the diner barely covered groceries. The interview lasted maybe 10 minutes. The manager, Mrs. Henson, kept looking at the clock above my head like she was timing something. She asked if I had problems with unusual workplace policies. I figured she meant overtime or something. I said no. Orientation was normal at first. Safety videos, tax forms, the usual. Then she slid a single sheet of paper across the table. Handwritten rules. No company letterhead, just 5 lines in blue ink. Rule 1. Don't answer if the intercom calls your name. Rule 2. Don't use the restroom near aisle 13. Rule 3. Never touch merchandise arranged in circles. Rule 4. If you hear knocking from the freezer, ignore it. Rule 5. Never stay past your shift. She watched me read them. Follow these or don't take the job. No explanations. I needed the money. I signed. First week was boring. Stocking shelves, checking expiration dates, zoning the aisles. The night crew was quiet, mostly people keeping to themselves. I thought the rules were just some weird management thing. Maybe leftover from a lawsuit or something. Then I noticed the toy aisle. Every morning, the action figures would be arranged in perfect circles, not knocked over by kids or messed up during stocking. Just circles, about 3 feet across, with the figures facing outward. I asked Greg, who'd worked there 2 years, about it. He just said, "Reset them if you see it," and walked away. One night I came in, and the circles were different, larger, with gaps between the toys like something had been in the center. I started noticing other things. How the overnight managers would walk the perimeter of the store every hour on the hour. How the security cameras all pointed at the same spots. Aisle 13, the freezer doors, the back hallway. Mrs. Henson pulled me aside my third night. "You're asking questions?" She wasn't mad, just tired. "Just follow the rules. They're there for a reason." I nodded, but that night I watched the cameras instead of working. Around 3 a.m., the feed to aisle 13 glitched for exactly 3 minutes. When it came back, there was a new circle by the Barbies. The next morning, I found a note in my locker. Same blue ink as the rules. It said, "They're watching you too now." I thought it was a joke until I saw the wet footprints leading from aisle 13 to the break room. They stopped at my locker. I almost quit that day, but the paycheck cleared, and it was more than I'd made in 2 weeks at the diner. So I stayed. I followed the rules. At first because I needed the money, then because I started seeing what happened to people who didn't. The first real warning came from the intercom. It was around 3 a.m., deep into my second week. I was stocking soup cans in aisle 5 when the speakers crackled to life. No background music, just that sharp pop of static that makes your teeth hurt. Then a voice. Not the usual bored manager tone, but something smoother, almost singing my name. "Jamie, please come to the service desk." The service desk had been closed since midnight. I stood there holding a can of chicken noodle, listening to the empty store. Nothing moved, no footsteps. When I peered down the main aisle, the desk area was dark. Then the voice came again, closer somehow even though the volume hadn't changed. "Jamie." Rule number 1 was clear. Don't answer if the intercom calls your name. I put the soup can down and walked the other way. The voice didn't come again. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was just fatigue. But the next night, Greg was stocking pet food when the same thing happened to him. He didn't react, just kept stacking bags of kibble while the voice called him 3 times. After it stopped, I saw his hands shaking. That's when I noticed the shadows. Down near housewares, where the emergency lights had been flickering all week, something stretched across the linoleum. Not like a person's shadow, sharper at the edges, too thin. It twitched when I looked at it. Not the way shadows move when lights flicker, but like something testing its limbs. I stared too long. The next night I found my locker smeared with something that smelled like wet chalk. Mrs. Henson caught me scrubbing it off. She didn't ask what happened, just said, "The rules exist for you, not me." Then she handed me a new schedule. They'd moved me from grocery to electronics, further from aisle 13. I started keeping track of the staff after that. We were supposed to have 8 people on nights, but the sheets always showed 10. Names I didn't recognize. People no one talked about. One night I counted heads during break, only 7 of us in the lounge. The sheet said 9. I asked Daryl about it. He'd been there 3 years. "Names stay until they're replaced," he said, not looking up from his sandwich. "It's how they keep count." The next week, Lisa from apparel stopped showing up. Her locker stayed full. No one touched it. Her name stayed on the schedule for another 2 weeks before it disappeared. That's when I found the newspaper clipping in the break room trash. 3 years old. Local girl vanished during overnight shift at Walmart. The article mentioned she was last seen heading toward the family restroom near aisle 13. No surveillance footage. No signs of struggle. Just gone. I started hearing the knocking in the freezer. Always 3 soft raps, spaced evenly, right around 4 a.m. I never answered, Rule 4, but sometimes I'd press my palm against the door after the knocking stopped. The metal would hum like something heavy was leaning against the other side. The circles got more frequent, not just in toys anymore. Once I found a perfect ring of shampoo bottles in health and beauty. Another time, a spiral of batteries near electronics. The night crew would reset them without speaking, careful not to break the formations until everything was back on shelves. One morning, coming off shift, I saw Mrs. Henson talking to a man in a blue vest I didn't recognize. He kept touching his name tag like it bothered him. As I passed, I caught the date on it. Since 1991. Our store opened in 2003. By then I'd learned not to ask questions. The rules are the only reason I lasted as long as I did, because by month 3 I knew for sure things in that store didn't just happen at night. They were always there. The dark shapes between aisles when you turned too fast. The way the intercom would sometimes click on for just a second before cutting out. And the circles weren't warnings, they were offerings. Tim was laughing about the rules on his first day. He pointed at the second one, "Don't use the restroom near aisle 13, and said it sounded like middle school ghost story stuff. Older co-workers warned him. He didn't listen. On his 3rd night, he decided to test it. I was stalking across the aisle when he pushed that bathroom door open, still smirking. The light flickered twice when he stepped inside. I kept working, expecting him to come out mocking the whole thing. He emerged 3 minutes later. No jokes. His face had lost all color, like someone had drained it out of him. His hands shook so bad he dropped his name tag. When I asked what happened, he just shook his head and walked straight to the break room. He didn't speak for the rest of the shift. Next day, he didn't show up. The scheduler said he called in to quit. No one mentioned him again. I asked Daryl about it a week later. He'd been there 5 years. All he said was, "People forget why we have rules until they remember why we have rules." Then he went back to stacking cereal boxes. I tried to avoid that bathroom after that, but one night around 2 a.m., I heard crying coming from inside. Not the muffled kind, clear, like someone was right behind the door, but deeper than normal, wrong in a way I couldn't place. It hit a pitch that made my teeth hurt before cutting off suddenly. Mrs. Henson found me standing there frozen. She didn't act surprised, just put a hand on my shoulder and steered me away. When I opened my mouth to ask, she said, "Some places shouldn't be doors," like it explained everything. I started noticing other things, how that bathroom door never quite latched, even when maintenance supposedly fixed it, how the security camera above it glitched every night at 3:17 a.m., how the janitors skipped cleaning it, even though their checklist included every other restroom. One morning, exhausted after a double shift, I went digging through old files in the manager's office. The original blueprints were rolled up behind a filing cabinet. I spread them out on the floor. The bathroom wasn't there. Neither was aisle 13. The current store matched the blueprint except for that section, like someone had taken a razor blade and sliced a new hallway into the plans after they were approved. Construction records showed no change orders, no permits for additional plumbing. Lisa from Apparel told me later that 3 people had disappeared from night shift in the past decade. Last seen near that bathroom. No bodies. No signs anyone had entered or left. One guy's wallet had been found inside, sitting neatly on the sink, completely dry despite the faucet running full blast. I started paying attention to who used that bathroom. Customers would walk in and come right back out, complaining it was locked. But sometimes they'd stay too long. One woman went in with a shopping basket and came out without it. Left the store immediately, face blank like she'd forgotten why she came. Security footage never showed anything unusual, just people walking through the door like normal, unless you looked at the reflections in the emergency exit signs. Those sometimes caught shapes moving after the door closed, things that didn't match the person who'd gone inside. Mrs. Henson pulled me aside after I started checking the footage too often. She didn't yell, just said, "Every place has its weak spots. Our job is to keep people from poking at them." Then she transferred me to the opposite side of the store. I still hear things from that bathroom sometimes. Whispers that stop when you get too close. Knocking that doesn't come from the door. Once I swear someone tapped on the inside of the mirror when I was walking past. They painted over the bathroom sign last month. No explanation. The door still opens if you push hard enough. I don't know what's worse, that people keep trying, or that something keeps letting them in. The new overnight guys don't ask about the rules anymore. I think they already know. The circles started out small, just toy action figures arranged in precise rings every morning. Then I noticed them spreading. Once it was canned vegetables, each can touching the next. Another time, shaving cream bottles stood in perfect spirals near the pharmacy. We'd reset them without speaking, careful not to disturb the pattern until everything was back on shelves. One night I saw the stocking team doing it themselves, not like normal zoning. This was different. They worked in silence except for whispers I couldn't make out. Their hands moved in sync, placing each item with deliberate care. When they finished a circle near electronics, one guy traced a symbol in the air above it. That's when I spoke up. "The hell are you doing?" The whispering stopped. All 3 turned to look at me. Not angry, not surprised, just blank. "Resetting," the oldest one said. Like that explained anything. When I asked Daryl about it later, he just shook his head. "You don't want to know, kid." But I pushed. Next morning, Mrs. Henson pulled me into her office. No write-up, no warning. Just, "You're on days next week." Day shift was normal. Bright lights, customers, no circles. I thought they were easing me back in until my first night back. That's when I found the cereal aisle. They'd spelled my name with the boxes, Jamie, in perfect loops of Cheerios and Frosted Flakes, not just plopped on shelves, each box angled precisely, like they'd taken measurements. I backed away so fast I knocked over a display. Mrs. Henson found me 10 minutes later in the break room, still shaking. She didn't pretend not to know what happened, just sat next to me and said, "They're watching you now." Then she handed me a slip of paper with handwritten instructions, how to reset the circles properly. I tried to ignore the old newspaper clipping I found taped under the break room table that same night. Yellowed and brittle, dated 3 years before the store opened. The headline read, "Local Walmart built on ancient burial ground." Below it, a blurry photo of workers digging near what looked like bones. Someone had scribbled in pen across the margin, "Do not disturb the offerings." After that, I started noticing details. How the circles always formed near certain spots. The base of aisle 13, the emergency exit by housewares, that one flickering light in sporting goods. How the stockers would check their watches before resetting them, like they were working on a schedule. How sometimes after completing a circle, they'd step back and wait a few seconds before moving on. Once, I saw what they were waiting for, a circle of shampoo bottles in health and beauty. As soon as the last bottle clicked into place, the shadows beneath the shelves rippled. Just for a second, like something underwater. I followed the instructions Mrs. Henson gave me after that. Never approached a circle until exactly 2 minutes passed. Always reset counterclockwise. No sudden movements. It worked, mostly. Then came the Halloween incident. I was resetting a battery display when the circle changed shapes on its own. The AAs rolled outward while I watched, forming a perfect line pointing toward aisle 13. When I told Mrs. Henson, she went pale for the first time since I'd met her. That's when she took me to the basement. That's when I learned what the circles really were. Not warnings, not offerings, invitations. We keep resetting them now, every night. Because if we stop, the circles will complete themselves. And when that happens, the things making them won't need permission anymore. Sometimes I still see my name spelled out in merchandise after long shifts. I don't reset those ones. I walk away and let someone else handle it. I don't want to know what would happen if I touched it. The knocking started my 3rd month on the job. Always the same. 3 soft raps on the freezer door at exactly 4 a.m. Not the sharp sound of someone trying to get in. More like fingertips brushing metal from the inside. The first time it happened, I asked Daryl if we had overnight deliveries. He just shook his head and walked away. Rule 4 was clear. Ignore the knocking. For weeks I did. Stocked shelves with my back turned while those 3 taps came like clockwork. Sometimes they'd pause if I got too close, then start again when I moved away. Like whatever was inside knew where I stood. One night I snapped. Maybe it was fatigue, maybe curiosity. The knocking came like usual, and this time I answered. Not shouting, just a quiet, "Hello?" The second the word left my mouth, the freezer door slammed behind me. Not the slow close of a heavy door. This was violent. Sudden. The lights went out. Cold doesn't describe it. This was the kind of chill that seeps into your bones in seconds. My breath came out in clouds so thick I couldn't see my hands. Then I heard it. Breathing. Not mine. Something deeper, wetter, with pauses too long between inhales. Like whatever it was didn't need air the way I did. I fumbled for the door handle. My fingers stuck to the metal. The breathing got closer. Not footsteps, just presence. The smell hit me next. Rotten meat and something chemical, like cleaning supplies left to ferment. I kicked backward blindly, connected with nothing. The breathing didn't react, just kept coming. That's when the whispering started. Not words, just sounds, like someone running fingers over a microphone. It came from everywhere at once. My vision spotted black at the edges. I remember thinking, this is how people disappear. Mrs. Henson found me 6 hours later. The freezer door was wide open when day shift arrived, frost creeping halfway across the floor. I was curled between pallets of frozen pizza, skin blue, mumbling about hands in the dark. The EMTs wanted to take me to the hospital, but Mrs. Henson talked them out of it, said it was just a prank gone wrong. I woke up in the break room with 3 blankets over me. My fingers still ached with cold. Mrs. Henson sat across from me, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. "You broke a rule," she said, not angry, almost relieved. The next morning, a blue star pin waited in my locker. No note, just a small enamel badge stuck to the metal shelf. It was heavier than it looked, cold too, not freezer cold, but the deep chill of something left underground too long. When I touched it, static buzzed up my arm. I asked Greg about it. He'd been there 4 years. His eyes flicked to the pin, then away. "Don't lose that," he said. "It means you're one of them now." The rules changed after that. Not the big 5, those stayed the same. But new ones appeared in my locker every few days, handwritten on yellow sticky notes. Check the salt lines by dairy at 2 a.m. If the intercom clicks 3 times, face the east wall until it stops. Never look directly at the man by the registers after 3:30. The knocking still comes most nights. I don't answer anymore. But sometimes when I'm restocking near the freezer, I'll hear something new, a voice mixed in with the taps. Not words, just my name stretched too long, like someone testing how to say it. Mrs. Henson took me to the back office last week, showed me a ledger with names and dates going back to 1999. Some entries had blue stars next to them. Others were crossed out in red. She didn't explain, just pointed to a blank line at the bottom and handed me a pen. I still don't know what the blue star means, but I know this. Since I started wearing it, the circles don't form where I walk anymore. The shadows near aisle 13 don't stretch as far when I pass. And when the intercom calls my name at 3 a.m., the voice sounds almost afraid. The pin weighs more some nights, like it's filling up with something. I think it's learning. I think that's the point. The freezer still knocks. I don't answer. But sometimes when no one's looking, I knock back. 2 taps, not 3, just to see what happens. So far, nothing has. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. Jen from Apparel broke rule number 5 the night before Halloween. She stayed to finish inventory, even though her shift ended at 4 a.m. We told her not to. Daryl even stood by her car with the engine running until she said she'd just be 5 more minutes. He left. That was the last time any of us saw her. Next morning, her Hyundai was still parked in the same spot. Keys on the break room table beside her half-empty coffee cup. The screen of her phone was cracked, a single fracture running corner to corner like something had pressed too hard. Security footage showed her walking toward Seasonal around 4:17 a.m. Nothing unusual until the last frame. Her body language changed suddenly. Shoulders stiffened, head tilted like she'd heard something. Then she stepped between 2 Halloween displays and didn't come out. Maintenance checked behind the displays 3 times. Nothing there but dust and a single abandoned shopping cart. Mrs. Henson held a staff meeting that afternoon. Didn't mention Jen by name. Just reminded us about the rules and handed out raise forms to everyone. No one asked questions. We all signed. My pay went up $1.75 an hour. 2 days later, names started appearing on the schedule I didn't recognize. A guy named Mark, assigned to grocery every night. A woman named Teresa, covering apparel, Jen's old section. The handwriting matched Mrs. Henson's, but she swore she hadn't added them. I worked with Mark once, or tried to. He moved differently than regular people. Not slow, but deliberate, like he had to think about every motion. Stocked shelves perfectly, but never spoke unless spoken to first. Once, when I asked where he transferred from, he said, "Store number 782, without looking up. There is no store number 782. Teresa was worse. She wore the blue vest, but her name tag looked older, thick plastic yellowed at the edges. The date under her name said, "Since 1987. Our Walmart opened in 1999. When I pointed it out, she just smiled and said, "Time gets funny here after a while." Then she went back to folding shirts with perfect corners. The schedule kept changing. More unfamiliar names popping up each week. Always assigned to problem areas. Aisle 13, the freezer section, floral where the lights flickered constantly. Never saw half of them, but the work got done. Christmas merchandise appeared overnight, perfectly stocked. The circles kept forming, but now someone reset them before we could. One night I asked Mrs. Henson about Mark. She didn't pretend not to know who I meant, just slid a blank blue star pin across her desk and said, "Some employees come with the building." The ledger in her office told the rest. Pages of names going back to the 70s, decades before the store existed. Every few entries, a red X instead of a signature. Some sections had more X's than names. Jen's name wasn't in there yet, but there was space at the bottom of the current page. Room for 2 more entries before they'd need a new book. For a while after Halloween, I'd find little reminders of Jen, a locker left slightly open, her favorite pen rolling across the break room table when no one sat there. Then one morning I came in and they were gone. All of them, like she'd never worked there at all. The next schedule had Teresa permanently assigned to apparel. Mark got moved to overnight manager training. Someone new appeared under electronics, Robert, since 1974. Now, when management calls emergency meetings, there's always a few extra people in the room. They don't talk much. Just stand near the back, watching with eyes that don't quite blink right. Mrs. Henson promoted me last week, gave me keys to the storage rooms and permissions to access the security feeds. First thing I did was pull up footage from Jen's last night. The timestamp shows 4:17 a.m. when she walks towards Seasonal. But if you let it keep running, something emerges from between those displays at exactly 4:31 a.m. It's wearing Jen's vest. The name tag is wrong though. Instead of Jen, it says Teresa. The footage cuts out at 4:32. Just static until the next shift starts. I didn't tell anyone what I saw, just locked the computer and stocked shelves until my hands stopped shaking. The rules exist behind the rules here. I'm learning that now. Jen broke one. Now she helps enforce the others. Maybe that's what the raises were really for, not incentive to stay quiet. Severance for when we eventually join her. Mrs. Henson took me to the basement my first week as a Blue Star. I didn't even know we had a basement. The stairs were behind a door marked electrical that I'd passed 100 times. The steps creaked differently than they should have, like the wood was older than the store. The walls down there weren't concrete. They were covered in symbols carved into the stone beneath the building. Some looked ancient, others fresh. A few were just Walmart inventory codes with extra marks added. Filing cabinets lined one wall, stuffed with incident reports dating back to before the store existed. Mrs. Henson handed me a key. "You're one of us now," she said. "The thin places need guardians." She showed me the phrases first. Short sentences in no language I recognized. One for when shadows moved wrong. Another for when the intercom clicked without speaking. The words tasted like metal when I practiced them. My blue star pin got colder each time I said one correctly. Next came the stocking patterns. It wasn't just about facing products anymore. Certain items reinforced the barriers. Salt in a straight line across aisle 5. Iron supplements arranged in crosses near housewares. Electronics always got extra attention. Mrs. Henson said modern devices confused whatever watched us. The older the tech, the better it worked. That's why we still used those ancient price guns instead of handheld scanners. Halloween was circled in red on the basement calendar. "The veil's thinnest then," Mrs. Henson said. She made me memorize emergency protocols for October 31st. Triple the salt lines. Extra circles in toys and seasonal. Most importantly, no one worked alone after midnight. The ledger came last. Black cover, pages yellowed at the edges. 37 names crossed out in red ink. Some had dates going back to the 60s, decades before our Walmart was built. Mrs. Henson wouldn't say who they were, just that they'd failed their duty. The most recent was Chris, crossed out 2 months before I started. His final entry read, "Breach attempt, aisle 13, contained." I asked about the map next to it. Our store layout marked with red X's forming a 5-pointed star. Mrs. Henson touched the center point. "That's where they buried it," she said. Didn't explain what it was. The X's matched our blue star pins exactly. The training took 3 nights. I learned how to spot threshold thinning, cold spots that moved, electronics glitching in patterns, the smell of wet earth where it shouldn't be. Minor resets used salt and iron filings from hardware. Major ones required blood. Just a drop, usually from a finger prick. Mine still stung when Mrs. Henson handed me the leather-bound book. It fit in my back pocket but weighed more than it should. The pages felt like they'd stick together if I didn't turn them carefully. Inside were older versions of our rules, handwritten in different styles over the years. Some pages were in languages I didn't recognize. Others had stains that might have been blood. The last section scared me most. Emergency procedures for a full breach. Diagrams of the store's foundation with charges marked at key points. Mrs. Henson saw me staring. "Corporate knows," she said. "They built this place to contain it. If we fail..." She didn't finish. Didn't need to. My final test came at 3 a.m. on the 3rd night. Mrs. Henson took me to aisle 13 and walked away. The shadows thickened immediately. Something whispered my name from the bathroom. The blue star pin burned cold against my chest. I spoke the first phrase she'd taught me. The words came easier this time. The shadows recoiled like I'd sprayed them with water. The whispering stopped. When Mrs. Henson came back, she nodded at the pin. "They'll notice you less now," she said. The next night I found my first circle waiting for me, a perfect ring of blue star pins around my time card, all slightly different sizes, all cold to the touch. I reset them without asking questions. The ledger has space for one more name at the bottom of the current page. Mine isn't in red yet. Mrs. Henson says that's progress. I still hear knocking sometimes. Now I know what it's knocking for. October 31st. We knew Halloween would be bad, but none of us expected how fast everything fell apart. The store had been tense all week, shadows moving in daylight, intercoms clicking on by themselves, freezer doors opening without anyone near them. Management called all Blue Stars in early for a meeting. They'd sent regular employees home with paid vacation. I'd never seen the break room so full. There were faces I didn't recognize, all wearing blue star pins older than mine. Some had dates from the 80s on their name tags. Mrs. Henson handed out assignments. Mine was sporting goods near the problem restroom. They gave each of us a black duffel bag, salt, iron filings, a flashlight that flickered when you shook it, and a small box wrapped in wax paper. "Don't open that unless you hear Protocol Omega," she said. Midnight hit like a truck. The main lights cut out instantly, leaving only the dim blue emergency backups humming overhead. That's when the changes started. First the tiles. The white linoleum darkened at the edges, like water seeping through paper. Then the walls. Aisle signs stretched upward too long, their letters smearing like wet paint. Colors bled where they shouldn't, purple dripping from ceiling tiles, green blooming across the floors. The intercom crackled. Leonard from electronics spoke the first phrase we'd learned in training. His voice echoed, then doubled, then came from everywhere at once. We all touched our blue star pins at the same time like we'd practiced. Mine burned so cold it left a mark on my chest. Footsteps started at 12:17 a.m., not from the front doors, from aisle 13. Too many footsteps, wet and shuffling. The walkie on my belt squawked once. Just a scream, cut off. Then another voice. "Breach in Zone 9, floors opening up." Static swallowed the rest. Mrs. Henson's voice came next, shouting not through the intercom but from somewhere near frozen foods. "Emergency Protocol Omega." She was running, flashlight beam bouncing off the shelves. I followed before thinking. Aisle 13 didn't look right. The freezer doors at the end were gone. In their place was a black rectangle. Not a hole, not a shadow. A door, older than the building, with hinges that looked like knuckles. It stood half open. Shapes moved behind it. Not shadows. Things with too many joints. Mrs. Henson was drawing symbols in salt at the threshold when the door swung wide. Cold hit us first, not freezer cold, the kind that stops time. Then the smell, rotten flowers and battery acid. The thing that came through wasn't one thing, it was pieces. Hands, mostly. Dozens of them knotted together with something glistening between fingers. Faces floated just under the skin, pressing outward like they wanted air. Some looked familiar. I saw Jen from apparel blink at me before sinking back into the mass. Mrs. Henson didn't scream. She grabbed my arm and shoved her wax paper box into my hand. "Both sides need a guardian now," she said, then took 3 running steps straight at the thing. The moment she touched it, her blue star pin flashed brighter than the emergency lights. The thing recoiled. The door shuddered. That's when the building started shaking, real shaking, like an earthquake. Tiles cracked, shelves tipped. Somewhere deep in the walls, machines whined like they were tearing apart. The wax paper box in my hand pulsed. I didn't think, just ripped it open. Inside was a rusted key on a string, a folded photo of the store from when it was still a field, and a vial of something dark and thick. A voice that wasn't mine whispered in my head. My mother's voice, though I hadn't heard it in years. "The old families knew," it said. "Thresholds can open both ways." I threw the vial at the door. It shattered against the frame. The blackness inside rippled, then reversed, like a video playing backward. The thing with hands stretched toward me, fingers brushing my vest. My blue star pin shattered. Mrs. Henson was half through the door now, her legs disappearing into the dark. I saw her mouth move. Just 2 words. "Go through." The floor buckled beneath me. The last thing I remember is the sound. Not a scream, not a roar. Like every TV and electronics turning to static at once. Then the pull. Not hands grabbing. The whole world tilting, like the store was a cup someone had tipped over. I woke up somewhere else. Still Walmart. but different. The emergency lights never turned off here. The intercom whispered all the time. I found the ledger later. My name wasn't crossed out in red, just starred twice, like Mrs. Henson's. I think that means I have 2 jobs now, one on each side. The knocking still comes most nights. Only now, sometimes I'm the one knocking back. The manager was gone. Just like that. 1 second she was drawing symbols in salt at the threshold, the next she was halfway through the door. It happened too fast. The door stayed open behind her, black and wrong against the fluorescent lights. Things crawled out, not shadows anymore, solid shapes with too many joints. They moved like insects learning to walk. The closest one had fingers that kept growing and retracting, testing the air. Another had faces under its skin, pressing outward. I saw Jen blink at me from inside one. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. I remembered the words from training. The ceiling phrase Mrs. Henson made me practice until my throat hurt. But the book said it needed balance, a guardian on both sides. Someone had to go through. The floor shook. Shelves collapsed somewhere in housewares. A fire alarm went off. The sound stretched and warped like a broken record. The emergency lights flickered, making the things from the doorway stutter in and out of existence. Jen stepped forward. Not the thing with her face, the real Jen. She looked different, paler, older, but it was her. She nodded at me, then at the door. I understood. The first phrase came out rough. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. The words tasted like pennies. The things from the doorway hissed and recoiled. One reached for me with 2 long arms. I spoke the second phrase walking forward. My blue star pin shattered. Cold metal bits hit my collarbone. The door pulsed. The edges blurred like wet paper. Jen took my hand. Her skin felt wrong. Too smooth, like plastic left in the sun too long. She pulled me toward the door. The last thing I saw was our Walmart. Empty. Normal. The emergency lights steady. A single shopping cart rolling slowly down aisle 7. Then the door closed. The other side isn't what I expected. It looks like Walmart, but not quite. The colors are off. Everything tinged blue like old movie lighting. The shelves stretch too far. Sometimes I'll turn a corner and the aisle keeps going, disappearing into fog. The others are here. Jen. Tim from my first week. Some faces I don't recognize. We stock shelves that don't stay stocked. The products change when you're not looking. Cereal boxes with no writing. TVs that show static no matter what channel you pick. There are rules here too. Different ones. Don't look at the customers too long. Don't touch the mirrors in cosmetics. Always reset the circles clockwise. The manager visits sometimes. She looks tired. Brings news from the other side. Says they're hiring again at our store. New night shift position open. I found the ledger here. My name isn't crossed out in red like the others. It has 2 blue stars now, one for each side. The door appears sometimes, not always in the same place. Once it was in the freezer section, another time by the registers. It never opens all the way, just enough to hear voices from the other side. Last week I swear I heard Mrs. Henson telling someone new about the rules. We keep working, stocking shelves, following protocols. The circles here are more important. They hold something back, something even the things from the doorway are afraid of. Jen showed me the basement here. It's bigger. The walls are covered in older symbols, carved deep. The filing cabinets go back further too. Some of the incident reports are handwritten on parchment. I don't know if we can go back. The manager says thresholds work both ways, but she doesn't know how. Not yet. Sometimes at night, when the store is quiet, I hear knocking. not from the freezers, from the walls, like something's trying to get in from outside. Whatever outside means here. The schedule still changes. New names appear sometimes. People I don't know. They work quietly, avoiding eye contact. Their name tags have dates that don't make sense. I think we're waiting for something. A new breach. A way back. Or maybe just the next person to break the rules. The intercom crackles here too. But the voices aren't whispering names anymore. They're asking for help. We don't answer. Time doesn't work right here. The clocks all show different hours. Sometimes the minute hands spin backward. The lights never turn off, but they don't really brighten anything either. Just that same dim blue glow, like perpetual dawn. This place looks like Walmart, but not quite. The aisles stretch too long when you're not looking. The floor tiles shift colors between blinks. Jen found me first. She looks different now, thinner, her skin too pale under the blue lights. But it's her. She remembers my name. Tim showed up a week later, or what feels like a week. He doesn't talk about what he saw in that bathroom anymore, just nods when we pass each other in aisles. There are others too. Some I recognize from the schedule at our store. Some with name tags from locations that don't exist. A guy in produce says he worked at store number 782. We don't have a number 782. We still stock shelves. The merchandise changes when you're not looking. 1 minute it's normal cereal boxes. Next time you glance, it's just blank packaging with no labels. Sometimes the TVs and electronics turn on by themselves, showing static that moves wrong, like something's pressing against the screens from inside. There are new rules here, different ones. Never face the mirrors in cosmetics directly. Always check your shadow before rounding corners. If it's not moving with you, stop walking. Restock items clockwise, never counter. The customers look almost human until you see their hands. Too many fingers, nails too long. They pretend to browse, but they're really watching us work. The manager visits sometimes. She looks tired, says they rebuilt the door on the other side after Halloween. Tells us which employees quit, which ones got promoted. Last time she came, she mentioned they're hiring again at our store. Night shift, just like before. We found the break room here, exactly where it should be. The coffee always tastes burnt. The schedules on the wall have names we don't know, with start dates going back to the 1950s. One guy sits in the corner every night staring at his name tag that says, since 1942. He never speaks. If you look through the security camera feeds here, you can sometimes see the other Walmart, normal, bright, full of daylight and real people. The cameras glitch if you look too long, flipping to show this place instead. I once saw myself on the feed, stocking shelves on the other side. I waved. The me on camera didn't wave back. The freezer section hums differently here. No knocking anymore, just a steady vibration that makes your teeth ache. One night I found the door open. Inside wasn't cold, wasn't anything really. Just darkness so complete it looked like a wall. Jen pulled me away before I could touch it. There's a back room we're not supposed to enter. I saw Tim coming out of it once, his arms wrapped around himself. He wouldn't say what was inside, just muttered "wrong house" over and over. Later, I found his name tag on the floor near aisle 13, the one from our real store, not the faded one he wears here. They give us paychecks here. The amounts are always wrong, sometimes thousands for a single week, sometimes just pennies. The paper smells like wet soil. Nobody tries to cash them. The intercom crackles all the time now. No voices anymore, just breathing noises. Sometimes it mimics the exact rhythm of your own lungs. I've started counting when it happens. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. The static copies me perfectly. Jen says people disappear sometimes. Not like when they quit, just gone between one aisle and the next. Their name stays on the schedule for a while before fading away. We think they might have found a way back, or been taken somewhere worse. Mrs. Henson left a ledger here like the one in her office. This one has more names, older dates. Some entries are in handwriting that looks nothing like human script. My name appears on the last page. 2 blue stars drawn beside it, just like in the real ledger. The emergency exits all lead to the same place, a stretch of blank wall near Garden Center. The signs still blink green, though. Sometimes I stand there just to watch them. On really quiet nights, if you press your ear to the wall, you can hear footsteps on the other side. They're hiring again at our store. Night shift position open. Good pay. Flexible hours. The ad doesn't mention the rules, but I know they'll be there. Same as always. I hope the next person lasts longer than I did. The intercom just clicked on. It's whispering my name again. I don't answer. But for the first time, I think I recognize the voice. It sounds like me. From before. If you see a night shift job at Walmart with strange rules, think twice before applying. Some places aren't what they seem. The rules aren't just policies, they're warnings. Doors that shouldn't be opened. Thresholds that shouldn't be crossed. I learned that too late. The other side looks familiar, but it's wrong in ways you can't unsee. The lights never change. The customers aren't human. And the intercom still whispers names, even here. So if you're desperate for work, fine, take the job. But follow the rules, especially the last one. If you hear your name called at 3 a.m., don't answer. Not ever.